It's Saturday, March 21st. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel. And earlier today, New York Center was briefly shut down because one air traffic control trainee tested positive for the virus, and the entire air traffic control facility needed to be briefly evacuated and disinfected, shutting down New York air traffic control. Let's get into the tweets that the FAA sent out about this, and then I want to go inside and show you on the map why this is so important and shows the fragility, the frailty of our ATC system under these conditions. This is something completely different than shutting down a control tower because somebody's sick. Control tower operations are completely different than shutting down an entire air traffic control radar facility, a high altitude en route facility. Completely different kettle of fish here. Here's the tweet that the FAA sent out earlier today. A Federal Aviation Administration air traffic controller trainee at New York Air Route Traffic Control Center in New York, I won't even begin to say the name of your small town, Ronkonkoma, New York, tested positive for the virus today. The trainee has not been at the facility since March 17th, and we've contacted local health authorities and we're developing a plan to quickly sanitize and clean the affected area. The center remains open and operational. If the FAA must close any sectors of airspace during the sanitization process, those flights will be rerouted as part of a long-standing contingency plan to ensure continued operations. That contingency plan, I believe that he's referring to, is the SWAP plan, or the weather contingency plan. Every day the air traffic control has to deal with weather, and when large weather events, thunderstorms particularly, move into a particular sector, air traffic control is rerouted completely all around the thunder cells. Arrivals and departures are rerouted, and they try to work with the high volume of traffic around this weather event. But this particular event just shuts down a whole block of airspace, much wider than a single weather event that you could more easily reroute around. The New York Center primarily handles high-altitude cross-country flights. Each facility across the country has a contingency plan that has been recently updated and tested. The safety of our staff and traveling public is the FAA's top priority, and all that. Now, this suspension affected departures to Kennedy, LaGuardia, Newark, and other airports in the region. It's because this particular region is some of the most congested airspace in America. Let's go inside and see why. See why this is so important. Critical. Airliner type aircraft operate at an altitude of 30 to 40,000 feet. They operate in this airspace, the high altitude en route structure, the high structure. This shows some of the different routes using the old VORs and Vortex. And if I zoom in here, you can see that this airspace is divided up into sectors, controlling sectors. Here's New York Air Traffic Control Center, and here's Cleveland, for example. That little ziggy line there indicates the space, the boundary of the different airspaces, different controllers. New York is some of the busiest airspace, located right over here. Here's a map of the United States that shows some of the different air traffic control centers throughout the states. And here's ZNY, or New York Center, right here, and a little bit offshore. Over the CONUS, the continental United States, all air traffic control in the high route structure is radar controlled. When you get over seas, when you get over the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean, you're operating in a completely different structure. Non-radar controlled. That involves tracks and that's a whole nother thing. In fact, it requires this whole separate international rating to be able to proficiently operate in that airspace structure. Here in the CONUS, it's all radar controlled and broken up into these different divisions. The Severe Weather Avoidance Program, this is an example of it, is where air traffic controllers can reroute traffic around severe weather. And I think that's what he's referring to as far as their flexibility. But this is different. Here inside the ARTCC facility, the controller's got to work very close in close proximity to each other on these screens. They're constantly monitoring in real time the air traffic, and they are controlling them to keep them separated. They are the pilot's extra set of eyes to make sure that all the air traffic stays separated. Here's your airspace classifications, the alphabet soup we were talking about last time with control towers. There's your Class D and Class B for controlled airspace close to the surface. But airliners operate up at high altitudes in Class A airspace from 18,000 feet above sea level to flight level 600. Interesting piece of trivia. U-2 and U-2s, Air Force U-2s, and the old SR-71, there's only a handful of aircraft that can go above flight level 600. Guess what? They can go VFR up there. But anybody that's in this Class A airspace between 180 and 600 must be under instrument flight rules, IFR flight rules. And over here in the continental United States, that means they got to be under radar control at all times. If that radar control facility goes away, this entire block of airspace for that control facility from 180 to 600 is effectively shut down. This has a profound effect on airline activity. You simply cannot go VFR and go see and avoid in this airspace. You would have to get below flight level 180 to do that, and the fuel burn alone would prevent you from effectively doing that on anything other than a very short flight. So if this entire block of airspace gets shut down even for 30 minutes, routes, departures, and arrivals have to be completely rerouted around this chunk of airspace, and possibly this airspace too. And even right now in real time, 6 p.m. Pacific time on the 21st, we can see that there's still quite a bit of air traffic on the eastern seaboard getting in and out of New York. A lot of them are still on the ground there at the different New York airports, working their way up and into the high altitude en route system. So to recap, airliners have to operate in IFR above flight level 180. If that airspace is shut down, that entire block of airspace is denied to airliners. They cannot operate in that airspace, greatly hampering the entire flow of traffic across the United States. A delay on one end of the system can back up and cause delays throughout the entire system. Again, with the slowdown in traffic, that should be less of an impact right now. But the fact that an air traffic control facility shuts down represents an entirely different problem than just a single control tower at a single airport. I hope this gives you a better understanding. We'll see you here.